I'm drinking
Yes,
wine.
sir.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a little wine.
I should have brought my wine.
All right, we're
Got a
live.
couple
easy.
Southtown breweries.
Hey guys, welcome to Pub Theology. Hope you're well. I'm with some good friends of mine. I'm with Pastor Chad from the Arsenal Church, and also with my good friend Brian Dillard from the city of San Antonio, Chief Innovation Officer. To be fair, they've known them for a few years in San Antonio, and they're great community leaders. And I'm glad they're joining us on Pub Theology tonight. You know, in Pub Theology, we've been doing this streaming service for a while now, maybe 6 or 7 weeks. And we've had some great guests in the past, from Max Lucado to Rabbi Samuel Stahl to Mayor Ron to Colleen Bridger to great activists and community leaders. We had a great conversation with Alex Bailey and an organization called Black Outside. You can look at all those on our Facebook page. And next week, we'll be having a Ramadan iftar meal to break the fast during sunset with some of our friends from the Raindrop Turkish House and other community leaders as well. So that's what's coming up at Pub Theology, but I'm glad Brian and Chad are with us tonight. And as people want to ask questions, if you're watching this on Facebook, you can join us on the Zoom link and you can ask those questions live, or you can just post your comments as well. So Brian, you've been the Chief Innovation Officer now for full-time for a year or so now?
About a year and a half, yeah.
And since COVID-19, what is your job now entail and look like to help the citizens of San Antonio?
It's funny because every time I said I was Chief Innovation Officer, or that I worked in Office of Innovation, everybody would say, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah.
So
tell us what it means, and then what do you do now?
Yeah. So well, transitioning into COVID, it was definitely an interesting transition because we really had to prove what our worth was in a crisis mode. So two of the things that we're focused on right now are digital divide, because that's definitely impacting communities, community members, from the most vulnerable to the least vulnerable, all across the board. So we're looking at digital inclusion, digital divide efforts. We had started back in the fall, so we had a head start. And then the other thing is kind of data visualization. So if you see the COVID dashboards on the city website, our team, along with ITS, our IT department, and Metro Health, created those dashboards to make sure the general public has an understanding of what's going on. We just released the indicators dashboard tonight, actually, on the website, probably about 15 minutes ago. So
Wow.
That'll be indicators of when do we actually open up, when do we shut down again, and that's metrics-based, data-based, rather than just trying to base it on a specific date.
Wow, that's really good. I can't imagine the amount of stress load that your team is facing. How are y'all doing? How do y'all cope just as individual people and working from home?
It's good. Luckily, we have great leadership. So our leadership really pushes us to make sure we're taking risks, make sure we're mitigating those risks, but make sure we take the risk when it comes to serving the citizens and giving them the information they need and doing the right thing. And if we, take a misstep, or if we do something wrong, we go back and we fix it. And there's no kind of like, oh, you really screwed that up, you're in trouble. So that's what's really important right now, is nobody knows what the hell they're doing in this space. This is brand new to everybody. So you have to have that kind of lower your ego, increase your humility, and understand that we're going to screw up, but just make sure we're doing it for the right reasons, and that we accept that and move on, understand the lesson.
Do you communicate with other cities and your peers in other cities and what the best practices are doing? How constantly are you involved with other cities?
At least a weekly basis. For the first 2 or 3 weeks, I think it was every day we were doing comparative city studies with Austin, Houston, New Orleans, all across the US and internationally. But recently, we get on calls with Austin, Houston, and Dallas mainly, and discuss issues that they're facing due to COVID, to understand what they're doing, learn lessons. We're not afraid to copy and paste in this new world. And that's a good thing. We're all learning together. Again, it's all about dropping those egos. It's not a competition right now. It's about making sure we're serving citizens well.
That's great. Again, welcome to everyone joining a Pub Theology that you're joining on Facebook Live. You're more than welcome to join our Zoom call and be an attendee. And if you have any questions, you can post those and we'll let you ask that question to any of our panelists. We're with Brian Dillard, the Chief Innovation Officer of the City of San Antonio, and Pastor Chad from the Arsenal Church, just down in Southtown. Chad, it's been now how many weeks since you really haven't had any in-person services?
What are we at? 6, 7 weeks, maybe? I don't even remember. Mark, what is the date? I don't even know.
I think it's like May 6th.
May 6th. So actually, it's been more than that because I think March 15th was our first online service, if I remember correctly. So, I mean, we're going on a little over 2 months of not meeting in the building.
And how was that originally for you guys? Like when you were just, starting to think about this, like, oh my gosh, we can't meet. How quickly did y'all jump into action? Was it easy? Was it difficult? Or was it kind of just, you've already doing this technology stuff, so you just had to kind of fix it to what the response was?
No, that was the crazy thing. So I want to say, I remember right, March 15th was our first Sunday that we switched to an online, we closed the church, didn't have in-person services. I think that Friday, if I remember correctly, that Friday is when SAISD closed and said they weren't going to have students at school. And we were watching SAISD. We kind of made a decision, if schools close, we're closing. And so when that happened, I called our team and said, hey, we're going to be online on Sunday. And the funny thing is, we have creatives that go to our church. I mean, it's Southtown, so we got a bunch of creative people, but we didn't do online stuff. It kind of went a little against the grain of our community and what we do typically. So our team came down, jumped into action that next day, and we literally shot our online service, I think on Saturday, edited it that night. I was up till 3 a.m., posted it and got it up. And we've been doing it ever since. And so it's been a whirlwind.
Doing it now that the governor, we've talked about this in pub the last few weeks and people have different responses, but for your church, how long do you see yourself doing this, even beyond maybe what you can do? I think we asked the question last week, there's things that we can do versus what we should do. So how do you balance those two? And what do you see your church doing?
Yeah. Technically, as per governor, the governor's, I guess, order, we could have church. We could have people here with a bunch of stipulations. But we've made the call. Our leadership team said, you know what, we're gonna hold out through May, kind of see how this thing all works out. And if I'm being honest, like, I don't even know if we're gonna be back in June. I kind of want to see, Brian, I was just looking at this dashboard, man. This is awesome for indicators and stuff. So I got it pulled up. So looking at all the indicators.
We'll look at that. And I want to pull it up. Chad's smarter than me to pull that stuff up, but we'll pull that up here in a second.
Yeah, we can share it. I can throw it on here. But I'm looking at that because that, for me, and honestly, our church we're a small community, and we do have people that are at risk. And even if we come back, there's so many stipulations and so many things, like just protective measures. I wouldn't say stipulations, protective measures that you would need to take. And it's almost like a killjoy to even come back. Like I have no idea how I would keep people from like hugging each other or like our community is just too friendly. And so for me, like we're going to do the online thing as long as we can until we feel everything is good and we can come back and it's safe. And really we can give the best experience in person that we can offer, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Brian, how hard it was. We're going to pull this data up on your website. Chad, can you help us do that? You got the dual screen out there. Chad's pretty awesome at this. You're loud. There it is right there. Yeah.
Is that it? That's the indicator dashboard, right? That's what you're talking about?
Yep. That's the one. So this is really telling us a story of are we doing better or worse as we move forward, and we cover everything from, so that epi curve is really the onset dates for when symptoms started occurring in cases that have been identified. And then of course we have the case count below that and then deaths. So really seeing how those, and when we talk about flattening the curve, that epi curve is what we're talking about. But as we open up, we're still keeping an eye on that to identify that, we're 2 or 3 weeks away from symptoms onset to when somebody may come in. And then on the right there, of course, we have all the kind of healthcare systems, indicators, ventilators, staff beds, ICU availability, and all that. So those are the charts we're looking at with regard to indicators. Metro Health's done an amazing job. It's been really great working with Dr. Emmerich and her team over there. They're the ones that really have the stress going on. We're kind of supporting the background, trying to help them get the mission done.
Yeah, and also there, if you, I think on that website, there's also ways you can learn about the resources that the city provides as well on that COVID-19 website, I believe, right?
Right, that's correct. Yeah, we've got everything in there from housing to utilities to small business support. There's information on there around internet, which is actually underneath utilities, which is great. So we are recognizing internet as more and more of a utility, especially now. But yeah, there's plenty of information up there for folks to peruse around. And this is actually the new website that we just kicked off yesterday.
Nice.
Wow. So the COVID-19 San Antonio website's been up. It was updated. It was
right. Yeah, it's pretty much a brand new interface. So you don't see the old City of San Antonio website format here, as you notice.
Yeah.
But that is still available. It'll be available till next week, I think, the old one. But this is the main interface page. So we'll be looking for feedback from residents on that, identify what works, what doesn't work. This was intended to get us away from creating a new page for every little thing. So instead of focusing on the website, like web pages, we're focusing on the use of the website. How is it best serving residents as they come into this interface?
That's awesome.
And it's more pleasing to the eye.
Yeah. So how long does it take from start to finish this thing? I mean, you're building it. You had one previously. How long does it take from start to finish for this website?
It never ends. It's a very iterative process. I mean, we started on this 2 months ago, and we started off with just that surveillance dashboard. And I think it was like 3 panes on there. And then we built out the self-screening dashboard, and then the indicators dashboard came. And then we also have the open data hub, which allows other people to utilize the data that we're pulling in, the raw data, and then create whatever they want to create, whatever they think is beneficial with the accurate data that we're providing. So, but I will say ITSD, we have about daily meetings with Metro Health and the IT department. And man, that IT team just impresses me over and over again. We had a call today with Dr. Bridger where she had identified some changes she wanted to make to the dashboard. And she said, can we do that? And by the time she asked the question, our IT guy said, go ahead and refresh the page. He had already done it. We talk about making changes good.
What's your total team size for this?
For this project, I would say about 4 or 5 people on a daily basis. And then overall, probably about 8 to 9, 10 if we're talking about all the way up to director, city manager level.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I think I'm busy, but no, people like this exist that do this 24/7. You're adjusting this stuff. Both of you guys, obviously, everybody's become some type of an expert on COVID-19 for good and for bad. Brian, how well do you feel like, because you're collecting this data, do you now understand this pandemic?
Actually, not well.
You're just data. You just put the numbers up.
Again, it goes back to that humility, man. Nobody knows what the hell's going on right now. We're all kind of learning day by day as it goes. And that reflects the kind of disagreements between should we open right now? Should we open? How much should we open? What should we do when we open? I definitely know, I'm definitely more informed than some of my relatives. So I'm constantly telling them like, hey, you still need to have a heightened sense of awareness on this. But as far as, everybody's asking, well, do you think it'll be 2 more weeks, 3 more weeks? like, I don't know. I said 3 weeks, 2 months ago. So
Right.
I have no clue.
Wow. I see those numbers, and I don't know if Brian wants to answer this. There's a lot of questions now about this is kind of people are getting tested. The testing sites are now less crowded as before. When do you think we'll be able to start testing people without symptoms, or do you think we'll never get there? Brian, do you feel like you're going to answer that?
My screen isn't frozen. Yeah, I can't comment on that. I don't want to project for that. That's Metro Health. That's those experts that are more aware of that than I am. And honestly, that's something we're depending on state and federal agencies to support. So those conversations are not only above me, but on another realm.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot with our people, serving the homeless, serving healthcare clinics that we operate. We have a healthcare clinic at our church on Sundays, and that we've changed a lot to meet the needs and also keep people safe. So we have a lot of those questions. And what's hard is if somebody's asymptomatic and get tested and it's a negative, you're like, oh, I don't have COVID, but you can get it 3 minutes after you get tested. It's a constant thing. And so really, without symptoms, it's going to be very hard to know how many tests. Like, do you get tested 5 times? Do you get tested 6 times? And I just don't think that's necessarily where we can go. And it's been challenging because we've been wanting to test, and but what's best for the common good of the society to give the great data. So data matters, right? You can have so much data that it actually doesn't create the common good of the reality of what's happening, and the danger is what is happening. Have you all talked about that? Like, what data is good to produce so that it helps tell a story, the accurate story, and not misconstrued? How aware of you are about certain data getting pushed out there?
Well, we always take into consideration that this data shouldn't be taken by itself. It should always be accompanied by context and accompanied by somebody who talks around it. So this is really utilized as a resource for our professionals to talk to. It's not utilized as an isolated, kind of read. But what we put up there, and that's the biggest concern when we talk about these dashboards, is which data should we be putting up there that is beneficial to the public, but also doesn't tell this, story that if I go to the website and I'm just general public and I have no understanding of this, that I'm going to take this and it's going to scare the hell out of me, or sure, that it's going to put me too far at ease. So balancing that out is really been important. But I would say that EpiCurve is a good way to identify that on the dashboard. And as we build out, every city is learning to define that. How do we allow these dashboards to tell their own story with the least amount of context being given from somebody attached to it? So.
Well, I really appreciate that. There's a great book called The Visualization of Data, and it talks about the power of even what a graph looks like, or how tuned in are you even with the visualization, like what type of graph to put up there, what's helpful, it's not misconstrued, the size doesn't look bigger than it really is. Who's your main person that deals with that? I mean, is it you? Is it anybody else?
So there's 2 main people on that. So I've got Emily Royal on my team, who used to work with the Rivard Report. We got to the city of San Antonio around the same time. She is an expert at all things when it comes to data sure, analysis, data visualization. And then a guy named Sean Cummings over in the IT department. Those 2, I mean, they're powerhouses. We've got a couple other people in IT as well. But they're the experts in this space. I try to take the higher level, and I'll let Emily and them bounce things off of me when they need it. But over the past 4 or 6 weeks, I mean, they've been in a driver's seat. They've been taking this thing and moving forward. They know it like the back of their hand, and it's really good to have talented folks like that, and compassionate folks that are aware of the citizens' reflections on this stuff, not just the data nerd stuff.
No, but that's really helpful. How are you doing personally? This is Pub Theology. We can get a little bit personal. I saw that you were on at our Rotary Club today, talking about the East Side and the development of the East Side. But how are you managing personally, Brian?
Not bad. I'm a social introvert, so I know a lot of people see me out and about for years, but I'm really a social introvert. Like, I can do it, and I'm good at it. But man, yeah, I like being alone. So yeah, this hasn't been bad. Happy hours are a quicker walk nowadays, so that's fun. My team is happy. We have daily. I've always said I'd never be the manager or director that would have daily status checks. But once COVID hit, I was like, oh yeah, we got to have it. But they seem to appreciate that and having that, kind of the ability to bounce things off and make sure we're all healthy and aware of what's going on. So it's been good. Yeah. Wifey's happy. We're both here. We haven't killed each other yet.
It's good. That's good. We have two pastors here. If y'all need some counseling, we don't bring them in. So Chad, tell us a little bit of what, obviously, at my church, we're taking leads not only from our churches around San Antonio that we're just friends with, but also the Methodist Church and the Methodist Church nationally and what they're doing, what the bishop says. How does your church, how many churches are you kind of talking with to try to figure out when this thing does actually move forward? And, you got to start back at some point, hopefully when it's as safe as possible. Have y'all talked about the steps you might take, or what is most important to start first and then second and third?
Yeah. So we do. I mean, I'm in, I guess, communication with different pastors here in town, quite a few, that I ask questions like what they're going to do, what their plan is, kind of how they're rolling back into it. And then nationally, we've got some pastors that, I don't know if you guys have Marco Polo, but I'm on Marco Polo quite a bit with a bunch of pastors across the country.
We're not that cool.
Yeah. So we do that, and then on top of that, we're technically, the way our church is set up, we're an elder ran church. So we've got an elder board that kind of manages the church operations, and I sit on the board. So I'm one of the elders of the church, but I'm not the end all be all for decision making. So our staff and our elders have conversations and just try to talk through like what should we do? What do we think is best for our community? Because even if all churches are like, hey, we're going back to services on Sundays, and we just don't feel like it's the best thing for our community, for the Arsenal, we just won't go back. Like I have no worry that like something's gonna happen, we're gonna close down, or people are all gonna leave. Like we're gonna do what's best for our community, and we're gonna walk that out. And to be honest with you, we haven't even I kind of mentioned it that we did a Facebook Live today on our Facebook page, but we're in conversations right now. We're a young church. We're we're 3.5 years old, and we have a younger congregation. And this online thing hasn't been terrible for us. And so we're in conversations on like, what does it look like to do a hybrid model where maybe we do our teachings online, where like some of our main teachings are online, and then our community gatherings on Sundays are more focused on community efforts or conversational gatherings. So I can say something or like give a short talk, and then we get to talk about it rather than just a person like giving a speech the entire time. So we're literally right now, we've said, hey, whiteboard is empty. What does church look like for us? And because we're not part of a denomination, and we kind of have freedom to make some of those kind of decisions, I'm a creative at heart. And so that's really what drives me in a lot of ways. And so all I want to do is, how do we find a way to bring people into community, let people know they're valued, they're seen, and they're loved. And if that means we're doing it online and doing some in-person stuff, I'm in. Let's do it. If it's, hey, we're getting rid of internet and we're just going online, we'll do that. So I'm not stressing. I'm kind of liking that, like, oh, we're going to go through May. If we go through June, that just gives me some more time to hash some things out, figure that out. And then when we come back, the plan is maybe doing that kind of model where, hey, we're going to do the hybrid model, and we're going to limit the amount of people even at that point when we come back, and kind of phase it in. I don't know how many of our people are on this Facebook Live, but it'll really be a testing ground for that model. And like, if we like it, we'll stick with it. If we don't, then we can always go back to like normal church services, right? Like that.
Sure.
We know how to do that, but I want to test some ideas, and it's giving me a launching pad to be like, hey, we're gonna get creative. We're gonna have some fun with this, and what does it look like? So,
yeah, and Brian, that brings you back to you. Like, so in this time, new technologies, people are experiencing new technologies, whether that's congregations or businesses, work groups, and they're like, oh man, I got to get on Zoom, I got to get on Skype, I got to get on a broadcasting thing to get this information out. I got to do advertising differently. Is there going to be some silver lining in technology, your tech guy, to really, or people are going to, this is going to be different from now on, even past COVID, people are going to learn to do some things differently, especially through technology.
Yeah, I mean, this really forced an investment that we already knew we needed to make. And I'm not speaking just solely on behalf of City of San Antonio, but just overall, there's a lot of investments we needed to make in order to get folks engaged, but also equip them with what they need to be engaged. So, we saw a lot of the school districts, and shout out to our independent school districts out there for doing a rapid turnaround, a rapid response on this. We saw a lot of them go out and pull out of their purse and say, hey, let's distribute, the devices that we need for our students to have that access. So from the City of San Antonio side, we were already focusing in on how do we create this touch point for our 15 school districts throughout Bexar County. So this was just an opportunity to expedite that effort. We just got off a call yesterday with superintendents from about 10 of those school districts, talking to them about digital inclusion and saying, hey, the city wants to help financially and also kind of help building out that infrastructure, but we need to leverage your resources and strategize on this together. So I think that unifying approach for a lot of things post-COVID is definitely a blessing as we move forward. When it comes to the tech side, I think a lot of it is forcing people to get into this new world. A lot of folks were hesitant because they didn't know, and that's uncomfortable and intimidating. But now they're being forced into it, and they're realizing, oh, it's not that difficult to do a Zoom call after I do it the first time, or it's not that difficult to jump on a teleconference. So I think it's really that it's a crash course for a lot of people, which is something that needed to happen. It's 2020. If you haven't done a FaceTime yet, this is definitely forcing you to do that. And, it's a good thing. And we're here to help. So the City of San Antonio is also working with organizations like OATS and the school districts to identify how we can provide support hotlines for folks that have never accessed the internet before. And now we're providing availability, but the digital literacy part is missing. So how do we make sure that support is there? So it's really that comprehensive approach to this, making sure that folks are connected, folks are aware that the technology is there, and folks are aware that the support is there.
No, that's really good. I think the same probably applies to you, Chad. I mean, churches are experiencing new technologies. You just talked about a little bit of that. What's one technology that you really found helpful for congregations?
Zoom has been a big thing.
Sure.
Our life groups, small groups, whatever you want to call Bible studies, home studies, have all gone on Zoom. So that's been new for us, but cool. Like even with our online services, which we push out to Facebook and YouTube Live, and then we do Zoom calls for our life groups. I'm using StreamYard. You talked about a little bit earlier to do. I'm doing 3 Facebook Lives a week right now, and the coolest thing for us has been, one, like I've got family members. My wife's got family members that are out of the state. They're now joining our church services. They're involved. They're part of it. They can be a part of the Zoom life groups. And even people that were part of our community that have moved away, that have moved out of state or out of the city, are hopping back on Zoom calls because they can. So it's really broadened who we can reach and really not even reach, just have a conversation with, communicate with, be in relationship with. And so it's just opened that up. And I think like Brian said, everybody's kind of been forced to do it, and now they're a little more apt to do it when they're asked. And so yeah, we've really leaned into it. And honestly, like a lot of it has been, hey, we want to do this stuff. We've been talking about it for months and years. Like, we want to go online. We want to video. We need to do more video stuff. We need to use some of our creativity. And we get caught up in the day to day and just didn't do it. Well, now we're doing it. And now we're putting out content like crazy. And we've got a lot of good feedback. And so I knew we could do it. I knew we had the skill set and the people to do it. And this forced us to do it. And so like I said, I'm a creative at heart. So I'm an extrovert, like super extrovert. So this is killing me not to get to do life and like be around people, but the creative side of it has been exciting. My wife constantly tells me I create work for myself, especially on the creative side. And so I do worry that if this goes too long, I'm going to burn out because I'm like idea after idea and let's do this, let's do that. And I work till all hours of the night because I want to do fun stuff. So I'm trying to learn how to balance that and how to kind of limit my ideas right now. But yeah, the technology has been huge for us. It's been, like I said, to the point where I'm asking, like, do we go back to our church the way we've always done it, or how can we utilize this moving forward? So it's been a big deal.
You know, I really like, even for Pub Theology, right? We've met at the Friendly Spot for 4 years, and you know, people have always asked us, "Hey, you need to put this online," but we're like, we're at a bar. The sound is difficult. You know, shooting this, we never figured it out, and it's just like, and that was kind of the beauty of Pub Theology. It was just this organic. You come and hang out, you learn, you get really intimate, usually with some community leader. But now it's pushing us to think, okay, when we go back into person, we're now used to this broadcasting thing. How can we do it where other people can see and participate, but not lose out on that kind of organic connection, right? So it's been great for Pub Theology to be online. Like, some of our videos, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of views. I mean, that's big for us. And yet, though, we're missing out on that like personal connection that made Pub Theology kind of what it was, and different than just hearing somebody talk about you know, anything that you can usually just YouTube and find, right? So there's going to be this balance that we come back to that I'm interested in. How can Pub Theology grow and develop, and still not lose out on this personal experience? You know, Brian and I, Brian's been a co-host, and Chad has 2 Pub Theologies in the past. Brian and I have one thing in common, is that we both grew up in the Churches of Christ, Chad, you know, the COC. So we have that big connection because I'm no longer Church of Christ. He's no longer Church of Christ. Great tradition. We still have many friends there and pastors that we knew in that field. Brian, talk about your faith a little bit. How is this COVID crisis, has it changed the way you think about faith or hope or the community around you?
Yeah, I mean, anytime there's a crisis, you know, you see the level of compassion rise up. I mean, everything from the way we see the food banks interacting to, you know, just general leadership and how they're quick to pivot the strategy of mission and what mission means during crisis. So seeing the compassion levels definitely helps kind of check you in with the human spirit, understanding that what's really valuable. That's definitely interesting. You know, as Office of Innovation, we get tossed a lot of things, a lot of these cool tech stuff that somebody sees in other cities. And I have to constantly remind people that our focus is, when it comes to technology or innovative approaches, it's really about what serves the citizen best. What's going to impact that least served or most underserved resident's life. It's not about the cool technology. And so, you know, now that mindset is definitely being projected across the entire spectrum. You know, I think that's really important. As far as kind of you know, from a religious standpoint, I definitely see the struggle from folks that, you know, have a dependency on that and really rely on, you know, that kind of congregational support. It's definitely a struggle. I got family members that are going through that. And it's, it's humbling. It's something where I realize I need to stay in touch better with them. And that, you know, certain support structures just aren't there anymore right now. And I have to be very cognizant of that and very aware of that as I speak to people and as I'm patient with folks. but then also, you know, and level of engagement. As I mentioned, I like being alone. I don't like talking on the phone a lot. I have to kind of swallow that and just say, okay, I'm gonna take this call this time.
So this is good. So this new church thing, you're like, man, I can go to church in my PJs. I don't have to leave the house. I mean, Brian, you can reconnect to church really easily now as an introvert.
Yeah.
I'll send you our link.
Yeah,
there you go.
I gotta throw it out there.
I'm gonna get Emerson
Brian,
and everybody else that's going into here in a little bit.
Before I ask that same question to Chad, I do want to say and ask you a question. We've seen this COVID, and we've asked this a few times a few weeks ago to different leaders. COVID has affected disproportionately communities of color, especially in the African American community. I mean, some of the numbers are radically high, where a city might have 7%, African American population, and it's 40% of the cases of COVID. When you think about data and how you're communicating that, how are we learning to better communicate with people who don't have internet, or also just don't watch certain news channels, or they don't watch the online version of the Express News or the Rivard Report? Those are very specific subgroups. It's almost like in the TPR, NPR world. How do we bust out of that and better communicate now? I mean, it may be too late for this round, but when this happens again, or any crisis, whether that's a hurricane or these things that disproportionately affect communities that are marginalized, how are we learning to now better navigate that scene?
Yeah, I don't think it's ever too late. Before this, when we were doing our digital divide assessment, the survey phase, one of the questions that always came up was, you're doing a digital divide assessment, you're putting a survey online? I'm like, no, we're actually physically going out there, we're utilizing agencies that are on the ground. And that goes back to that unifying effort. These times really truly emphasize the need to depend on each other as agencies and organizations. And that's what we're doing. So we have a great GPA, Government Public Affairs Department, that's doing a lot of innovative approaches when it comes to block walking, door hangers for our council representatives. But it's really depending on agencies like United Way, CPS, SAWS, VIA, all the school districts, understanding that we can leverage them and what they're already doing and build capacity there when it comes to reaching people where they are, rather than expecting them to tune into TVSA every day or go to a website or something. We utilize those agencies that touch them day after day after day. We don't try to act like we can solve it all on our own. So that's really the biggest solution, and that's something that we're definitely being reminded of as we move forward.
Yeah, that's good. And I think we've just really, the social service committees that I'm on for the working groups for COVID, immigration, homeless, which is to getting information out there. We might produce it, right? We might produce the translations for every language known possible in San Antonio, but how do we actually get that translation to the right community? It's been a challenge because there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of misunderstanding, there's not a lot of trust, and all those are tied together.
That was something I learned about a year and a half ago. It was at a Dream Week event that I had hosted when I first got into the Office of Innovation. And we made sure we had everything in Spanish. We had Spanish interpreters there, the headsets, all of that, and none of it got used. And we said, see, man, we did all this and none of it got used. And somebody, a friend, Sivone, actually nudged me and she said, did you advertise in Spanish? Did you actually make sure that the folks that were going to utilize that were aware that it was going to be there or that this event was even occurring? And I was like, yep, there it goes. So I definitely realized that. I'm going to go back to something you mentioned at the beginning of the question about, communities of color being impacted by that. And again, another shout out to our leadership at city management levels, as well as Metro Health. They've been very vocal about these disparities being more apparent now and being emboldened due to COVID and the impact. And they've stated outright that this is something that, as we move forward, it won't be something that goes on the back burner. It is now very apparent that communities of color are faced with disparities when it comes to health that we need to be addressing full force as we move forward. So another shout out to leadership there.
No, that's really good. And I really appreciate that. And the places of, advertising is key, right? For example, when we were kind of investigating the state testing site for COVID run by the state, so there's also ones run by the city, there's private ones. The city one has been overwhelmed the last few days or the last few weeks. The state one was like, we're having no one here. And we're like, well, did you advertise? No. We threw it up the last minute and no one knew. And that was the general population, right? That's not just a set group. So these things are really important to let these resources know. If you don't advertise, you can have a website up all you want and no one can go to the website. So that's really good. Chad, back to you with this, how are you communicating to your congregation, your parish, in a time where a lot of people are frustrated? You have people in your congregation who've lost their jobs, who are just, probably, down and out. It's a younger population, right? We know just in statistics that that younger people don't give as much at churches as people in the older, generation. I don't need to focus on that part, but I do want you to focus on what are you telling your congregation in this time of crisis? How are you expressing hope and all this fear?
Yeah, I think trying to stay as connected as we possibly can in any means possible. Even just listening to Brian right now, I'm like, man, there's things we've missed. Like, I know there's people in our community that we're not getting enough information to, because I know there's people that don't have access to everything. Like, we're throwing up Facebook Lives 3 times a week. Not everybody's on Facebook. And so we try to hit as many places as possible. But I remember last week we had a guy come by here who's part of our congregation. He's part of our community. He's an incredible person. And he's houseless right now, right? So he's not even houseless. He just lives in a place where he doesn't have access to a lot of the things that we do. And so he was like, are we having church? Like, what's going on? And so we got to talk to him, and we're like, hey, he was on Facebook, so we got him connected to our Facebook stuff, but trying to stay connected in that way as much as possible. And then getting on the phone. Like, we call people, which I'm not as much as I'm an extrovert to the point where, like, I would rather FaceTime you than call you on the phone, because I want to see your expressions. And so even calling people is not my norm. But trying to get on the phone and call people, text people, just check on them. And even through our Facebook Lives, we've been bringing on people that are, I had, I think you're friends with Joel Rivas, who runs Herd. And he came on and we did a conversation on just mental health. And during this time, what does that look like? Where can we get access to help? How do you communicate with us if you need anything? And so, we teach every week, right? We teach the hope of the world is Jesus. And so we're teaching that, but really the action of that, showing people what love in action really looks like, what Christ's life in and through me looks like is just being present. And so we're trying the best we can to be present, even through social distancing. It's social distancing, not social isolation. So we can still be in communication and still be in relationship with each other. It's just different. And so we're doing our best to stay connected and let people know we're here. And I do. I know, I'm sure you do, or Gavin, I get texts. I was on a text conversation last night till almost 2 a.m. with somebody who's just struggling. And it's tough. It's especially when you are already dealing with mental health stuff before this happened. It's just heightened it. And so anxiety and depression, suicidal ideations, just those conversations. And I'm not a trained therapist. And so it's I'm going to talk with you as much as I can, but my goal is, how can we get you in front of somebody that can help you navigate this? And so we're doing the best we can in that. And then, Gavin, we're in Southtown. So we do have a bunch of our homeless and houseless brothers and sisters that are around here. And so trying to figure out what's the best way for us to serve them, stay safe, keep them safe, and all that stuff has been part of our day-to-day stuff as well. I think you do it way better than we do. And so we're trying to learn.
We're just positioned
Yeah,
very
you're
well.
right there. But we are too. I mean, I'll walk out here right now and there's a group of people that are across in the park or in the little community garden, and we want to love on them as best we can. And so we're looking at, I was looking at stuff today for hand washing stations that are like mobile hand washing stations. I don't know if the city has that yet, but there's a group out of Atlanta that's now been doing them in cities all over the country. And we're looking at those today. Like, man, maybe that's something just to help out with hygiene and keeping hands clean and stuff. I don't know. If you got ideas, let me know.
No, that's, when I look at like kind of the frustrating elements of this, there's a lot of them, but, I work with the homeless a lot, and obviously their life is difficult to begin with. But some of the things that we've had not been able to do, from simple things like opening up our mailroom every day. And you think that's not a big deal. Like, we just can't open up our mailroom right now. But people are relying on mail, and that's the one place they can get their mail. And that's the only address they have, and we're not open. The stress that creates for people, the anger, the frustration, and it just piles on, right? So yes, we're providing food, we're providing some shelter, some hygiene kits, but we're not providing this overall service that gives people a lot of peace. And that stress is just mounting, and obviously probably growing, because we don't even know what the true fallout will this be after evictions are lifted. And so really trying to communicate a hope right now is really tough, right? And like you said, you can preach all you want. I mean, I got to mention this to you, Chad. I'm going to ask you, there was a church, I'm not going to mention its name, in San Antonio, and his quote when wanting to meet back up was, "We're okay." And he said, "Baby," I like that. He started it with, "This is a shirt I can make. Baby, we're covered in the blood of Jesus." How as a pastor do you respond to that? I mean, you probably identify with the language. So how do you respond to that language versus what does that really mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think wisdom is also part of understanding who we are in Christ and walking in that. And so I don't tell my kids go play out on the highway. We live a couple blocks from 281. Like, go play out on the highway, God's gonna protect you. No, like, don't be an idiot. So we don't, like, I'm not gonna say, hey, I'm not gonna say that God doesn't protect us, but like, if that were the case, then no Christian would ever die, right? So like, the reality is that happens. And so yeah, I'm not putting myself or my family in. I'm going to use wisdom. I'm not going to put us in harm's way, and we're going to love people the best we can. And I mean, there'll be times where I probably step out and do something that is like, I'll engage with homeless brothers and sisters that other people may not, because they're trying to stay as distant as possible. And I'm going to take every precaution I can. And I'm going to, and if at that point, I'm making a decision though, that if I get sick, I'm getting sick. I'm not saying that, oh, God's just going to I'm not going to get sick, because I think that's just naive. Like, you can't say that. Like, Gavin could get COVID, and that doesn't mean that God doesn't love him and that he's not, he's not a good Christian. Like, it's just, yeah, I don't think that's how that works. My theology doesn't back that up.
We do have a question from Linda. She's on. We're going to pull her up here. So we are going to promote you here to panelist here, Linda, and you're joining us. Glad you're here with us. Just unmute yourself, and we will answer your question. Thanks for joining Pub Theology.
Hi, Gavin. Hi, Chad. Hi, Brian. Thank you for taking my question. So I am actually a public enrollment professional. I'm currently working for a consultant agency here in town. And a lot of what we do is public meetings, public hearings, interacting with the community. And now during COVID-19, all of that's going online. So my question is, what are some suggestions on how we can get people that don't have internet access, that don't have online access engaged in our public enrollment processes for the city, for the state, for counties that we're working with. That's basically, I'm open to any and all ideas because that's our struggle. And really, I've been surprised at how little has been said about this particular area in terms of public engagement, because it's so important to a lot of our planning processes.
Yeah, I'm guessing
that's for you.
Linda.
Yeah. Thanks, Linda, for your question.
Yeah, so I don't think there's a magic answer for that, and I'll be frank with that. I mean, you look at city meetings, and the biggest step that we've been able to take is physical barriers to ensure social distancing in physical presence or physical meetings. We've definitely ramped up our online meetings when it comes to commissions and public, typically public meetings. But again, that digital divide barrier is still in place there. I think one of the objectives that we're looking at is, again, and I'm going to keep saying this, partnering and unifying with other organizations and agencies, but is identifying which agencies are in the communities where our clientele are. So those public meetings that you usually have in those neighborhoods, is there an opportunity to still host physical meetings in those neighborhoods, but at lower capacity once, the reopening starts to take place? But as of right now, I mean, it being on lockdown, being on stay home, stay safe orders, there's not really an overall answer to that question, Linda. And I know that that's kind of crappy to hear, but and it's crappy to say, from the city of San Antonio side. But that doesn't mean we're not working on it. As I mentioned, GPA is doing physical handouts, doing a lot of block walking. We're depending on our city council representatives and their teams to be engaging in those spaces physically while maintaining that safety mindset. But as we start to open up, as capacity start to loosen up, we're going to be identifying new ways. And honestly, this is a time for resiliency lessons to identify how do we solve this for next time if this occurs again. Hey, Linda, it is so good seeing you, by the way. Yeah, I miss you.
That's good. I'm glad you're joining us, Linda. Do you have any follow-up to that, Linda, to clarify your question?
No, I think Brian hit it. We're really struggling right now with trying to figure out how to do that and how to do it effectively. I know the teletown halls is something that the city of San Antonio has done, but even just getting the word out about the meetings, it can be difficult. So it's something that I struggle with. Being a woman of color, it's important to me that we engage our low income and minority populations. And at least from all the clients that I've been working on, it's like nobody knows when we'll be able to have meetings again. And even then, what will those meetings look like? Are we going to have hatch marks on the floor like HEB does to let people know where they should stand? And do we need to have hand sanitizer? Do we need to have masks? I just feel like this is an area that should and needs to be addressed at some point from a policy level so that we know how to move forward.
Yeah, and we do have our economic transition team as well as our health transition team. Those task force are top of the conversation for them as they start to develop these plans. Not only the first draft of the plan, but those are living documents that will be added on to. So any feedback, any kind of advice on how to solve for these, I mean, nobody in our space is an expert. Nobody's truly an expert in any space. So that's one thing about the city of San Antonio is we're always looking to learn more about what we can do better and how we can do it. Yeah.
All right, Linda, thank you for answering. Thank you so much. Glad you can join us.
I appreciate it. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Thanks. Now I got to learn how to do this. I'm like an old man over here trying to figure out how to do this. There we go. Thank you, Linda, for joining. We do have a friend, and this is a surprise for Chad here. We have Valerie Salas. She's a member of your church. She also works with Centro and also Haven for Hope doing homeless outreach. We're going to bring her on here and tell us a little about what she's been up to in the streets of San Antonio. And a lot of that stuff's been promoted on Brian's website. Valerie, you got to unmute yourself, but thank you for joining.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
What a surprise streaming on my Facebook to see you guys, both of y'all.
What
Good
up?
to see you. Chad and I are only friends online. We
Yeah.
like each
Yeah.
other in
Gotta
person.
keep that bound.
It's true. Where are you going?
Tell us what you've been up to, Valerie. What have you been doing since in the streets of San Antonio since COVID started, and how can we help? How can what are some of the resources that we can push? We got a guy that can put it on your website right now. So what's been going on, Val?
Yeah, there's been some adjustments. The pandemic hit as far as being like boots to the ground outreach with the social distancing barrier and for safety measures, not only it's not, of course for our safety, but for the safety of our clients and homeless friends on the street. So we're not out there the way we're used to, but working like with you guys and in the city and Corazon Ministries, just adjusting to how we can cater to the need, which is to make sure, they're obviously getting the resources that they need, especially food. That I've seen that be very successful. The previous question that they were talking about with the Wi-Fi, it just popped in my head right now that since we are still kind of out there, it's probably a good idea to see if we can advocate to get some kind of Wi-Fi mobile devices for us out there so we can make sure that they're getting connected to whatever services they need as things are limited right now. So that was good to hear right now. But I was down at the hub today again. Just keeping that resource going has been good. And then how you've gone with this several times, just jumping in the van and taking it out to our homeless friends who can't make it to the hub because they have disabilities or just some mental health challenges where they can't navigate to those hubs. That's been going well. We've been doing that every day. So.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about those hubs. I can communicate that, but I'd like to hear from you. Tell us a little bit about what the city is doing to partnering with hubs around the city. What does hubs mean?
So a hub is a general area location where our homeless guests can go to get food. They provide hygiene. And I'm just there available. Like I had a guy today that showed up that hit that barrier with his ID and mailing services to be able to just over the phone connect him to get copies of his IDs so he could start work as soon as in the morning. I mean, he was desperate for work and he just needed a few phone calls. It was just a few phone calls away for him to sit there with him and call those people to get him connected to temp services. Just being available for that. So these hubs there's one there, obviously that you're at very frequently in the downtown area at the San Fernando gym. That's every day we're serving from 11 to 1. And then there's also one in the south side on Southwest Military at a Walmart parking lot.
Yeah, and there's the ones that the city runs and the ones that city knows about that supports in a way. And those are all on the website, the COVID-19 San Antonio website. And we'll pull that up toward the end again so people can know, and we'll post the link on our description once we're done with this video. And thank you so much, Val. One thing that Val does very well, I wrote about it in the Rivard report, is that she and her team and teams from Centro, right? They're all kind of weirdly contracted through Centro. I know there's like this weird web of contracts, and Brian used to be on the Centro board. If you might still be on the board, I don't even know. They know that they've started to do a really good job knowing the names of the homeless. Like that's the one thing they take pride in knowing, is though that therefore when something does arise, when you need something, a relationship to happen, when you know somebody's name, everything becomes a little bit more personal and real, and you can treat a solution better. And so getting to know people's names is really important. And Valerie and her team at Centro, Block by Block, all those guys and gals that are ambassadors have done a fantastic job. And any information that we can always use, send it over to the DHS and to Brian, and they'll put it up on the website to get those resources out there. And also asking for volunteers on that website at the COVID website. There's a link you can sign up Geniuses and volunteer with Valerie and her team at these homeless hubs all around the city. Val, is there anything else you want to share about what's going on?
Yeah, no, just the volunteers are appreciated. And just also to get the word out to our homeless friends out there. If you have those resources available on you, I don't ever encourage like panhandling, giving things like that, but giving them fruitful resources like, hey, go to this place today at 11, they're going to be serving food, just being armed with that knowledge and wisdom is very helpful to someone you come across on the street. So
That's really good. Thanks.
Mhm.
Val, thanks for being with us. And
Yeah.
Thank you.
you
Thank you, Val, for all that you're doing.
You don't have a tough question for Chad. Chad's just been waiting for a zinger question here.
A tough question.
Yeah.
I always ask him, and he said that this is in the works when he's gonna when we're gonna rent a bus. He already knows I'm gonna ask. We're gonna rent a bus and take a bunch of friends to SeaWorld.
I've heard y'all talk about this.
Or Fiesta, Texas. It's a bus now. So Chad,
Yeah, it used to be a van. What happened? now we're taking a bus.
Do a big charter VIP bus, party bus.
Hey, if anybody's got any connections with SeaWorld or Fiesta Texas and we can rent it out for the day, we'll take a bunch of homeless friends and
actually. Okay, yes. Yeah,
let's do it. I'm in.
I don't know how
Gavin
soon.
wait, which way is
Soon
Gavin?
that's gonna
on my
happen.
on my screen, Gavin's over here. So Gavin will pay for it and we'll be good.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. How's that position, the Brady Bunch thing?
recording this.
All right, Val, good to see you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, Val.
Well, I think that's good. I think we've had some questions. If you have one more question, we're here for a few more minutes with Pastor Chad from Arsenal Church and Brian Dillard from the Innovation Office of the City of San Antonio. This has been a long journey, and it's just as long, a few more weeks, a few more months of this in various forms of social distancing and keeping each other safe. I will have Chad at the very end close out with a kind of thought, a pub theology spiritual thought of the day. You can always check out, we'll also put the link to Chad's church online here. It's the Arsenal Church in Southtown San Antonio. Pretty cool story that they started as a church plant, and they were at the KIPP Academy for a very long time, for a few years, and then tried to find a church location. They could have bought in a few buildings in our purchased land, but then Southtown Community Church, is that what it was called? Southtown Community Church. On Pressa near Mission Restaurant Supply, you'll see a church around in that neighborhood in Lavaca, and that church was getting smaller and smaller, but still very lovely church. And they offered Chad just to take it over, and so the Arsenal Church moved in. That other church finished up their ministry, and now Chad's at that location. Where's your location exactly? What's the streets?
Yeah, it's 105 Sadie Street. So we're in between Bliss Restaurant and Taco Haven, right off of Pressa. So right at the kind of midway point of the Lavaca neighborhood. Southside Community Church was phenomenal. And before we moved in, they were feeding anywhere from 80 to 100 homeless people every Wednesday night. They were doing a meal here. We ended up having to, because we're a younger congregation, we have a lot of kids, and the area where they were feeding is where all of our kids go now. And so we did a crossover for a while, and we had to change that up. So I've got some wild ideas of like a food trailer in the back parking lot that we could feed people and stuff, but eventually I'd love to get something going again. And then also like trying to figure out the neighborhood. When Southtown Community Church moved in, well, the church has been here since like the 40s, but when Pastor Jim Barrier, who took over about 20 years ago, the neighborhood here was way different than it is now. And so we're trying to navigate that as well.
Sure.
Change in neighborhood and still serving our less fortunate or our homeless brothers and sisters down here. So it's been interesting to navigate. This last month and a half has been really interesting down here for me, but we're trying.
Hey, and you got that encampment right outside your house that I know a lot of people are interested in, and those are the daily grinds of living in community, especially near downtown, right? I always remind people when they want to live downtown, they just can't get what they want. They get everything. And that's the beauty of living downtown. And I think that's what people really like in the end. It's just a struggle when people are moving in from different parts of the town, gentrification. Brian used to be the president of the Diggy Hill Association on the Near East Side. And right when that growth was happening and him managing a group of people who are mixed from people who've lived there for a very long time, for people who are new and young and want to transform the community and put on kickball leagues and all this stuff. And you look at all this and say, how can we create the common good? Brian, what did you learn from that experience at Diggy Hill? What was your and about community? We're talking about.
Oh, okay. All right.
What did you learn?
Definitely learned I never want to run for office.
That's fair. What did you learn about a mixed community, though? Like, and a community, and the good, the bad, and where can we find strength?
You have to do your best to eliminate division as much as possible. That was the biggest thing I learned. There were so many little factions. There were factions among people that lived in the neighborhood for over a decade on this topic. And it was just a matter of, you can't get mixed up in that. You have to focus on what's the objective. And the objective in those times is always to serve the least served, the most vulnerable in the neighborhood. And so that was a continuous thought. When folks would come up to me and, complain about the new folks coming in, I would always reflect to them that some of those new folks are doing a lot of good work for folks that have been here for decades, that have been struggling for years. So don't automatically judge them. And then when new folks would question me about what they would deem troublemakers in the neighborhood, I would say, okay, have you talked to them? Have you made a relationship with them? Maybe there's something that influences that maybe you don't understand. So the division there between communication and just the factions, things is just eliminate. And I think that's naturally going away a little bit more. I'll say that lightly. But yeah, I think that was the biggest obstacle. Still is people.
Yeah, but it's the American journey, right? I mean, we've been dealing with this not just in San Antonio from the very get-go, when different groups of people came in, lived blocks apart in New York City, and they were from different parts of the world and usually did not like each other, and how to work together in a new way. And what weirdly enough, sometimes religion divides that even worse, makes the division even worse. But I think sometimes it can make it better, especially in the way we live now, where religion usually sometimes isn't as divisive in the neighborhood. Maybe nationally it's pretty divisive, but I always encourage people, if they are people of faith and they haven't found a home church, find one in your neighborhood, right? Like, how many churches do you drive by on your way to find a church, and you pass like 15 in your neighborhood? You're like, not there. We're going to go on the highway. We're going to go to this one because we like the preacher or whatnot. But the benefit of a faith-based community in a neighborhood, working in a neighborhood, usually you'll be with people that are different from you, socioeconomically, racially, mixed bag, right? Especially in more blended communities. And then the good that can come out of that community work, I think is very powerful and healing, and can really, again, unify instead of divide. And it unifies because you get to know somebody. When you get to know somebody, then you're less mad about a housing structure coming up. You're less mad about their intentions, or if you get to know the church that serves the homeless a lot. Yeah, okay, well then maybe I can understand a little bit of what they're doing.
And I also think it encourages that action to get outside the walls a little bit more. One of my thoughts on the church in the past was that the church was limited. The actions that they would take and the movements that they would make were limited to the walls of that church. And I kind of had a touch with that when I was growing up, where a lot of the members were coming in from suburban neighborhoods into this church. They were going to church and then leave and go back to suburban neighborhood. But if you're really attending a church that's in your community, it's hard for you to deny what's going on outside of those walls, directly. So that's another level to it. But yeah, I agree with you, Gavin.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important, and one that Brian's really has worked hard to figure out. I think one of the first times I met Brian 5 years ago or so was when the homeless population on the east side was getting worse and worse, and it's had ebb and flows. It's obviously during COVID, it's gone kind of back up, but you hosted an early on Dream Week event at the library and just really wanted to figure this out and learn about it and bring people together from ministry to city. And that was really encouraging. Brian does a very good job, and I'm excited that you work for the city now to bring that type of behavior into various departments, right? And now you're doing that same type of inclusive work in the world of IT, which is what you did as a secret agent in some kind of group. I feel like he was a secret agent. He never told me what he did before he worked for the city. So I'm pretty sure he worked for the CIA or something. So, and if that intentionally, that was intentional, he did not tell me that. That was a total guess. Well,
we can figure out real quick, Gavin.
We have one last question
Everything's on Google.
a listener here. One question is, and I'll get it. It was how to speak to your kids during this crisis, that there was a lot of fear out there. So Chad, this is to you as a parent and a pastor, but as a parent, more importantly, how do you talk to your kids about the COVID crisis? What can you tell parents listening now and will be listening later to just tell them a little bit more about this? And then we'll conclude with you and Brian here after that question.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, I do have 4 kids that range from 15 years old down to 18 months old. So we've tried to navigate this. And I think it goes back to kind of what Brian said earlier about data. It's kind of the same thing with my kids. Like, they don't need to, like, my kids aren't watching the news. They don't need to see everything that's on the news. So the information they get for the most part is from me. My 15-year-old's on social media, but I mean, we just have conversations about like the reality of what's going on, but also that like this isn't the end of things. And we're in a unique situation. My wife and I were both in the Army, and so we've both been deployed and gone through just some crazy stuff. And so I can talk to him about like, hey, look, like we've gone through some crazy things in this world. This isn't the end of the world. This is just, hey, we're social distancing. We're not going to school, and it's to protect people. And who is it to protect? Well, it's to protect, those that are more vulnerable to this disease or this virus where it could be detrimental to them. And so I think for me, like, your kids are like, they're resilient. They're intelligent way more. I think they see and they understand things way more than we think they do. And so we just try to have as good a conversations, at their level as we can. And I saw on the question, Linda said, that the murder hornets didn't help. And I'll be honest, like, that scares me more than the virus. When I saw murder hornets, I'm out. Like, I'm staying inside. But yeah, I think just having those conversations, and we go outside. So we take our kids out. We go, and to be honest, like, one of the things that I've loved about this quarantine, distancing, whatever word we're going to use for it, we've been way more active as a family than we have in a long time. And so I've got an 8-year-old son and a 5-year-old son who both during COVID have learned to ride their bicycles without training wheels. So just getting out and riding and doing we're still doing life. It just looks different. And honestly, my kids are loving it. Like, they don't have to go to school. They do schoolwork in the mornings. They get to get on iPads or watch TV or like go ride their bicycles or skateboards or play basketball. Like, they're loving life. So maybe it's tough for me to talk to the fear part of it, because they're just, they don't even care right now. They're loving it. But I'm seeing Linda's comment on here. My kids won't go out anymore. Yeah, I think it's just getting them out, like, and like saying, hey, let's go outside. Let's go. I'm reading her. My son has asthma, and yeah, maybe you scared it. I get it. Like, there are some precautions to take for that with asthma. And so I could see that. And I think just walking through the idea that, hey, we're taking precautions, but this is safe. Trust me in this. I'm not going to put you in a place. I'm sure they trust his parents. Like, you're not going to put them in a place that's going to be detrimental to them. And so, yeah, walking them through that. And you know what? If they want to stay inside, let them stay inside. Like, at this point, like, we're doing what we can. My kids, they make messes in the house that they didn't used to make. And we're at a place right now where we're just embracing the mess, right?
I make messes in the house.
Like, we're embracing it. Like, it's a little crazy. It's a little wild. We've had to give up on some of the things we hoped, like, the house has to be clean like this, or you've got to be quiet during this. Like, some of the rules have just kind of gone out the window, and we're doing what we can to just have fun together and realize that some of the things that we want to control are not really as important as we thought they were. And really, like, for us, we're having a lot of fun as a family. I do way too many live streams right now, but other than that, I get to hang out with my kids. Right before I came here, they were jumping off the couch, which is a no-no in our house. Like, you do not, like, get on my couch. A no-no. I don't know why I said that, but Brian just started laughing at me. But like, they don't get on the couch and jump off. But today, like, I was throwing them on the couch and they're jumping off. Like, we're embracing the mess and enjoying it. So do what you can to do that, I think.
All right, great. Thanks for that question, and thanks for that answer from the parent in the group. I think just Brian and I are parents of dogs, so if there was any dog questions, we could hammer that one out. But
I need a dog.
Okay, there you go.
Get a Yorkie, man. They're easy to clean up after.
Brian will give you his. Now, Brian, Chad, if you can help us pull up that website again. Brian, tell us exactly the website name and where we can go. We'll pull it up for you here so you can remember.
Yeah, let me see. So it's sanantonio.gov. There we go. Oh, actually, it's covid19.sanantonio.gov.
You see it?
Yeah.
So it's covid19.sanantonio.gov. Easy to remember. And this is a new website interface, and it gives you all the dashboards that we're utilizing to display the data, as well as our open data hub, which includes all the raw data. So if you're a data nerd and want to play around with what we have, you have that at your disposal. And then below that, there's a ton of resources and support efforts. Everything from how do I stay at home and stay safe to education resources, homeless resources, as we mentioned earlier. And if it's not there, feel free to ping us straightforward.
That's good. Brian, what's your takeaway from this so far? What can you say to San Antonians that you've been grateful for? What's been something that you've been grateful for the work in San Antonio, what you've seen and what you've been able to do research on?
I guess that I got to say it again. I'm sorry. I'm going to keep going back to this partnership and unification. I really appreciate it when people work together and enjoy working together and see the benefits of that. And that's been a tremendous value to me. That's something I've always pushed is, and actually Paul Williams says this a lot is, we can go faster alone, but we go farther together. And that's something that is definitely being shown with COVID impacting our community. And then it'll be shown after that. It's definitely a lot of lessons learned. It's not the end of the world. There's been much worse times, in history, as Chad alluded to. We'll get through it. It's going to be a pain, and it's going to be some transitions. But if we work together and support each other in a humble manner, in a compassionate manner, then I think we'll be better off in the end.
Thank you. One of those things is I've just been really impressed with the city's ability to also just come again, volunteer. I know friends that are volunteering for the food bank. They're volunteering for Meals on Wheels. Joan Cheevers, I think, cooked over tens of thousands of meals for Meals on Wheels at a restaurant. I think that's a Dady restaurant. We've had restaurants come and support Corazone's homeless hub with the city. So on Fridays, we have the Sichuan House, which is a great Chinese food restaurant. It's like the best one in the city, in my opinion. They come and cook the food for the homeless on Fridays. We have restaurants that support us on Monday. We've had past restaurants like Pinch Broil House, Back Unturned Brewery. This list of people who are willing to help, and we get to help them, right? So these workers get some income that may have been laid off or have less work to do. So it's been kind of fun to see so many come together and meet a need, but also kind of be blessed at the same time. So thanks, Brian, for leading that charge with the city when it comes to innovation. That website's amazing. Again, check it out. Chad, leave us with something hopeful, Pastor. What's your closing remarks here for us today at Pub Theology?
There's a passage that throughout this we've talked about quite a bit in Matthew 6, right in like 26, 27, 28, where Jesus is talking and he says, like, look at all the birds. Do you think they worry about their existence? They don't plant, they don't reap, they don't store up food, yet your heavenly Father provides each of them with food. Aren't you much more valuable to your Father than they? So which one of you by worrying could do anything to add to your life? And for me, I think he goes into clothing and all kinds of stuff. And I'm not remiss to like think that like when I say this, like we've talked a lot about like our homeless brothers and sisters who like don't have this kind of stuff, but that's what the church is here for. Like God provides through his people. And so this is an incredible opportunity for us to provide and show love in a way that is tangible. And so for me, I get the statistic wrong all the time, but psychologists say that like it's like 94% of the things that we worry about, we either can't control or would never actually happen. And so in this time, for me as a person of faith, if the birds don't worry about where they're going to eat or what their existence is, then I have to believe that a God who is love, that truly wants the best for me, is going to provide for me and is going to take care of me. And I think the beauty of that is a lot of that happens through his people. We were always plan A to show his love to people. And so this is a moment where we get to step in and do that. And so I think the church is doing a good job in our city. I think our city is doing an incredible job of looking out for the less fortunate or those that are at need right now. I mean, the San Antonio Food Bank thing has been incredible to watch. And even down to like cortisone ministry and like things like that are just continuing to happen, and not only continuing, but have like just thrived in this moment, have said, you know what, this is our time to step in and just love people. And so for me, at like speaking to the church and to believers, like this is our moment to really truly live out what we believe, what we teach, and that is let's love people well. And that could be in a tangible way or just offering hope. And then on the other side of that is, hey, if we believe Father loves us, then let's allow that to happen and let's not worry about it. And so that's the most theological I'll get for you, Gavin. I don't know.
That's good. It's this Sunday is Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all.
Oh man, I gotta do something.
Yeah, you gotta figure that out. But I know that at our church, we're celebrating not only mothers that are biological, but all mothers in our community that have served their communities through their love. And Psalm 31 is the psalm of the week if you're a liturgical calendar kind of person. And it's part of it says this: turn your ear to me, come quickly to my rescue, be my rock of refuge, a strong fortress to save me. Since you're my rock and my fortress, for the sake of your name, lead and guide me. And it's obviously speaking about God, but I think there's a motherly aspect to God, and that really kind of really hits home for me when I think about mothers, and also the way that we can experience God through our mothers. And one thing is, it's just not God will save us, right? And just blanketly save us. He will save us and then guide us to action. It's not just, hey, we're saved, we're going to go on and do our thing. It says, after this, please lead me and guide me. And I think that psalm is important to remember, not only in our own lives, but when we think about our moms and all the guidance that they have done in our lives, the ones that are with us now and the ones that have passed away and that we'll see sometime in love and eternity. And light and love. I know Brian's mom was a huge impact in his life. And so with your prayers and thinking about your family, Brian, and the great love that she had for her family and her community. All right, guys, it's another round of Pub Theology. Coming up next week, we have Imam Mustafa from the Raindrop Turkish House, and Mehmet, a lay leader there, great leaders in our community. If you know Mehmet and Mustafa, a great guys in our community. They're going to talk about Ramadan. It's Ramadan right now. It's the season of Ramadan where they fast during the day. and they break that fast at night at a meal called iftar. It's an evening sunset meal. They're going to tell us all about it at 7 p.m. But then at 8:13, we can break that fast and share a meal together online. So we'll do this again through Zoom. We'll post on our Facebook page a restaurant where you can get to-go meals that are a little bit more traditionally around during Ramadan. But really, Mehmet said you can eat anything. You can have enchiladas. It doesn't matter. They're like, in our community, we don't always eat traditional food when we break the fast. We can go to, we can eat anything. But we will post some things that might be a little bit more enjoyable for you to connect in the spirit of Ramadan. To our Muslim brothers and sisters out there, we love you. Happy Ramadan. And that's what we'll be doing next week in Pub Theology, because this is the place where all perspectives matter, all views, different brews, and we're in this community thing and trying to create the common good. So thank you, Brian, for doing that. Thank you, Chad. And we'll be back next week. Be blessed, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.